Hey everybody, welcome to the show. This is the UncomMEN podcast, and do we have a show for them today, Chris?
Oh, we have a great show for you guys today.
We have a show for you. Welcome to episode 8. So episode 8, today we're going to discuss roles. When we talk about roles, we're talking about roles in a relationship, okay? So with your partner, your significant other, whatever that might be for you, whether you're married or you're in a relationship with someone that's new, or you're interested in getting involved more serious with your partner, that's what we're going to discuss today. And we have several subtopics that we're going to go and discuss. And Chris, what's going to be the first one?
Well, you know, we talked a lot about cooking, right? And the perception of cooking in the household. And one of the things that always stricken me as a person, and as a cook in my house, is comparing the profession of cooking to the household role of cooking, right? And if you think about it, the chef world, the cooking world, you know, for whatever reason, is predominantly men, right? So it's always stricken me that the role in the household is perceived as a female's role to be the cook, and it's kind of been confusing to me over time because I love to cook. It's therapy
so do I.
for me, and you shared that experience as well, right?
Right, so those of you, if you haven't seen our taco video, if you go back a few, my kids and I made tacos, and so we give you some tips and tricks on how to do that. And so that's something that Chris and I feel like is valuable because I think in your household, do you primarily do the cooking?
I do.
And so
I do.
Okay, and it's just something that we're okay with doing it, you know? And I want to be real honest, when I took over that, it was difficult for me because when we were a new couple, I didn't really know how to cook that well. I made a lot of cooking mistakes. There were certain things I could cook well, like breakfast. And I'm really good at it now. The kids always, my 16-year-old is always like, Dad, how do you make these eggs? Like, you make the best eggs.
Yeah.
I was like, well, he's like, how do you do it? Well, I was like, I made a lot of bad eggs. You know what I mean?
That's a good lesson.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's how I'm teaching them is how to do that to get better. And so with that said, though, it kind of did mentally take me a little bit of time to accept that it wasn't a woman's role. That it was okay for me to do that. You know what I mean?
Sure. And see, go ahead. Yeah.
And I was just going to say, and then I fell in love with it, with the creativity, like we were talking about before we were prepping. Chris had mentioned how you can be creative with your cooking.
Yeah, and so that's where I took on that. You know, I was raised by a single mother. My dad was around, but in my household, you know, I was raised by a single mother, and so I was involved in extracurricular activities, and she was, you know, working a full-time job, and so I undertook some creative cooking for myself, you know, survival of the fittest type of deal, and so that's where I picked up cooking and you know, some of the safety things and being creative with food and mixing stuff together. And so when my kids say those things to me, my response is, you know, you just have to be freely creative and open-minded, right? And so the different lessons that have come out of that for the both of us in that particular role and involvement and that interaction with our kids is super important and super key. But again, you know, that segues into the overall conversation of roles in the household, right? Because it's perceived and it's almost taught to us by our parents, our dads, specifically that most of the time it's the wife that cooks, it's your mom that's going to cook. Even in school, right? You shared a story where, you know, back in school for you, when they're doing culinary days, right? The teacher said
in Spanish class we would have a culture day, right? So culture day, hey everybody, tell your mom to make something for culture day. You know, tacos or enchiladas, or my mom would always make tortillas. But I had a buddy that always raised his hand. Hey, what if your dad does the cooking? It would have offended him because she never said, hey, tell your parents or mom or dad. It was just assumed that your mom's going to do that. And back then, because we grew up in the 80s and 90s, that was kind of the thing primarily, you know? And so as time has turned and, you know, both parents are working, because when I grew up, my mom was home primarily, so she did do a lot of cooking, and my dad was working full time. And so he wasn't as home as often type of thing. And like you, I had extracurricular activities and that type of thing. So I didn't get to learn a whole lot from my mom. She was pretty stingy with her knowledge until I got into adulthood. And then she started sharing more and more of that.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot from her, from my wife, and just really from, my wife's grandmother, conversations with others about how to evolve. Like, I made meatballs recently.
Really?
That I put green chili inside of them.
Dude, really? We're going to have those.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I'll make you some balls.
I bet. So
You're gonna love it. Food video coming soon. Stay tuned for my meatballs.
Green chili meatballs.
Green chili meatballs.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
And so that really helps in conversation when we talk about male roles in the house, right? And what are those roles? And for me, it's based on your relationship and what works for the both of you, right? Like in my relationship, my fiance is perfectly cool with me having full creativity in the kitchen, right? And that's kind of out of her comfort zone because she had the same experience as you, where her mom kind of kept the kitchen under lock and key. So some of those skills she didn't really learn, and she's not comfortable with.
Gotcha.
Right, and whereas mine, my kitchen was open 24/7.
Yeah.
Right, and for me to get in trouble with, and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But that's a great topic and a great conversation to have on what, as men, what are our roles and our responsibilities in the household, right? And I think that's it, right? The role and responsibility kind of go hand in hand. It's really what's best for you and your family versus what's socially acceptable.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't know that definition applies anymore. So what are our responsibilities in the household now?
Yeah, so to kind of connect the dot with that, for me, I took that responsibility because my wife's a stylist, we own a salon, so clients are available primarily when they get off of work or on the weekends, typically between 10 and 7, we're taking clients. So if my wife's not making food for the kids, who is? That had to be me. I took that responsibility. You know what I mean? And I was okay with that. And as I've gotten better and better at it, I've gotten more creative with it. And I've become more adverse with meals in it, and it's more enjoyable. But with that said, as far as responsibilities, that's something that has to kind of be discussed with expectations. We keep talking about expectations. Because when you accept those responsibilities, sometimes your ego might not say yes right away because of however we're trained or programmed or how society might want us to be as a man. And that's what being uncommon is about. It's about taking that responsibility of whatever task that might be at hand for you as whatever partner you are in the relationship, male, female, or whatever your relationship type is, okay? But making sure that you are owning that responsibility for the betterment of your partner. Because it does take two to tango. You know what I mean? Like, if one person's standing still and the other one's dancing, you're not dancing together. And the relationship is a dance. So taking that responsibility to where you're actively and doing it with joy. And I've been there with Chris where I've done stuff that was my responsibility, and I wasn't doing it with joy. I was kind of doing it with resentment, whether it was dishes or laundry, stuff that I just felt like I shouldn't be doing this. But it took a certain level of shifting my mindset to be accepting of the responsibility. You know what I mean? And that's what I want to encourage you all to do is accept that responsibility. There might be something that's hurting you that you just don't want to do. And even if you're single, there's just stuff we got to do. Like I had a teacher in college tell me, Josh, sometimes you just got to step through the shit to get to the other side. But when you get to the other side, you can always clean your feet. And that stuck with me.
That's a great.
It always stuck with me.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Really transcends into like you mentioned the family unit, right? And how that all works and how that all comes together. And it is all about responsibility. It is all about discussing those expectations, right? And it's not just one. I don't feel like even as a man, it's not just my wife's job to do the laundry. It's not just my job to do the yard work, right? Like, and that's always confused me about those social definitions because, socially, then they identify gardening with women. Right? And so how is the yard work just the guy's job?
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't make sense to me, right? And then you have the honey-do list, right? Socially, who's doing the repairs inside the house? Socially, it's men. Right? And so how is the inner house duties just a female's job? They don't make sense to me. It's got to make sense for your family unit and how that helps your significant other. Like, nobody wants to take out the trash. Yeah. Nobody wants to clean the bathrooms. Nobody wants to do the dishes. Like, let's be real about that. Those are unfun tasks. Those are no fun. But I will tell you that when I stand at the sink and probably don't do the dishes well, but I'm there doing the dishes, my fiance, my wife, is in the background cleaning the living room or cleaning the bathroom that I didn't want to do.
Right.
So it's all about team effort, right?
Exactly.
We've talked about that multiple times, taking responsibility. And I hit on this with a video I did last week, right? And taking
and our 2-minute
leadership.
tips. So go back and watch it if you didn't see it. It's the most recent one on Facebook.
Right. It's about the UncomMEN brand is about being a leader in your home, right?
Right.
We've talked about that, and that leadership role and responsibility, I feel like, is a key element of that leadership role. And it's not just about taking the victories, right? It's about and it's not just about control. It's not about controlling your household. It's about you talking about things with your family unit, whatever that dynamic is, right? Taking ownership of that and saying, okay, this is what we agree on. I'm going to lead us down that road, right? And if that road takes us in a negative way, it's taking that responsibility on your shoulders as a family leader, right? And even if it's a negative one, and absorbing that for your family so that they don't.
I like what you said there, because you've got to also own the loss. So just to kind of piggyback off what he's saying, or snowball off of that,
exactly,
is you've got to own the loss too. So like with that coach mindset that we like to share, not every responsibility is a victory. You know, like you said, you might not be doing the dishes right, or you might. I've made mistakes with doing laundry. You know what I mean?
Who hasn't?
Or there might be something I'm doing wrong in the kitchen that my wife prefers for it to be a certain way. You know, and owning that loss. And instead of getting upset. So I would encourage you to just hear your partner, you know. And with that said, too, it kind of goes into our final topic with support.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah. You said it, Josh. Is a great segue into you being that leader and also being a support system for your family unit, right? And too oftentimes I feel like as men, we're just the physical support, the strength support of our family, right? And we miss out, and I say this because I do it too, miss out on the emotional stuff. Sometimes because we're being that strong person, we miss out on the fun stuff, right? We miss out on being the advisory council of our kids because we're just trying to be too much of a totem pole for the family unit, just that like stiff, strong, support system. We miss out on those other things.
And I think that happens when you're not in the moment, when you're not enjoying the moment. And the word continually states to find joy in all things. And so sometimes when we get distracted by the enemy, we're not finding joy. We're not looking for joy. We're finding things that are not going to make us happy, and then we continue down that path. But if you're seeking joy, then you're going to discover joy, because you're going to find what you're looking for, whatever that is. And you're going to end up where you want to be. You can write your own story by writing your goals down. And the same with your relationships, and being that support factor too. Like often where I've gotten to in our relationship, where like if we have to have conversations, I'm literally writing like a business meeting. I'm making notes about whatever we need to discuss. Whatever that situation might be based on how I'm feeling, that might need to be resolved. Or maybe often it's piggybacked with whether it's finances or career or change that needs to occur, typically something for betterment that causes conflict. Or when you're on that journey as a business owner, there's obstacles that come and that brings stress. When you're on that journey with your career, there's obstacles that overcome that bring stress. And sometimes you just got to hear your partner. Sometimes my wife just wants to talk about something and I feel like she's like angry at me, even though she's not. She just wants to be heard. Yeah. Because she's just upset about whatever. Because it's hard. Work is hard. Life is hard. Certain clients are difficult. Some are very fun and enjoyable to work with. But sales, we've done sales a long time. That's a grind. And I think our personalities love to overcome that task, but it is also a weight. And sometimes we just need that person to vent to and share information. Because I know my wife feels that too. She's like, "Were you mad at me?" I'm like, "No, I'm just trying to share with you, and and just can you just listen to me for a moment? I don't even need you to fix it, because often, that's usually a guy thing where guys just want to fix it as soon as your partner tells you something right. My wife's like that though. She wants to fix something. It's like, I don't need you to fix that, honey. I just need you to listen. I'm gonna get over this. Yeah. I'm upset. I'm probably gonna go for a run or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Just knock out some push-ups. I just need to be heard right now.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. And that's and you hit a ton of key stuff, and I feel like a good solid supporting role in your family unit. One of those is just listening.
Oh man.
Right. I struggle with that so much.
Wait, what'd you say?
I'm sorry.
What'd you say?
and you know,
that's a joke. We're just joking, okay? Salud.
As men, right? Like, you said it really well. Like, normally we're thrown into fixing stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And so you got like a fixing personality, and so right away you want to start coming up with solutions. They probably already have the solution to this. They just don't have emotional release.
That's good.
Right? And so
yeah.
when you know, my fiance, my wife on Saturday, by the way.
Oh, congratulations,
Yeah.
Chris. No more gonna be engaged, gonna be married man.
Yeah.
So hands off, ladies. Hands off. Tasha's forever.
She would constantly have to tell me, I just need you to listen.
Yeah.
I don't need your help.
Yeah.
I don't need anything. I'm just venting.
That's hard.
But
that's hard.
It is.
Because you care for her.
But it's a form of communication,
It is.
right? I think it's a cause for a lot of breakdowns in your family units,
Mm-hmm.
not just your spouse,
Mm-hmm.
with your kids too.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that family unit is, that's a communication breakdown. You're
Mm-hmm.
constantly you're thinking of the solution, but you're not listening to the actual problem,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're trying to help, and I get that,
Mhm.
right? But there's no communication there, right? Because you're trying to find a solution for something that you don't even know fully about,
Right.
right? Yeah, and so that's not a good example of a supportive role, right?
Or leadership.
Or of leadership, right? And that's you said this really well. And I don't know if you did this on purpose, but we treat as men, we normally go into something 100%,
Mhm.
right? And that's true in our relationships, even though sometimes they don't show it well. That's true in our jobs. If we're coaches,
Mhm.
all these other things, right?
Mhm.
We are super good at being supportive roles in our jobs,
Mhm.
but we fail to bring that kind of mentality
Mhm.
home with us,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And so we can identify.
Not me. Not you.
No, definitely not me.
And not you, because we're all working on it. We're all growing. Okay?
But we can identify at work. They'll give us a title,
Yeah.
and we know what our role is
Mm-hmm.
at work,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're okay with that. We'll take notes. We'll do training.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do all this work so that we can be that supportive role, that
Right.
teammate,
Yeah.
that functional element of that business.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't do that at home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we need to continue to work. That's something that I want to challenge the UncomMEN culture,
Mm-hmm.
right? And not just the men, but the women too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is to continuously, because that role is going to be continuously evolving.
Oh, yeah.
Every single day it's going to be
Oh,
different.
yeah.
Every day, and you talked about challenges,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how you absorb those challenges. That's you've got to make yourself inclusive in your family unit team,
Mhm.
because when you separate yourself, you also isolate yourself,
Mm.
right? And you
Mm.
don't allow yourself to connect with all those super important elements
Mhm.
of my family unit. And I'm just as guilty as anybody else. You know, I see myself miss on fun stuff.
Mm.
I see myself miss on opportunities to be a comfort for my kids and my spouse. I see myself missing on the physicality part and the advisory
Mhm.
part of that, and I see, I see how much it hurts my feelings when my kids would rather go to my wife than me
Mm.
for advice. But that's my fault. That's my responsibility. That's me. I've somewhere deflected that, right? So I've got to now reflect on myself and say, okay, where can I fix this? How can I repair that relationship? So I would challenge all the UncomMEN culture, right, to identify that support system and how you can better that every single day for your family unit, because again, it's forever changing every single day. As your kids get older, as your relationship grows, as people change, as your relationship in the world changes, that's going to change along with it, right? You know, that's where that whole perception of marriage and relationships, and we'll talk about that in another episode, comes from, I feel like, because people don't stay the same every day.
Mm-hmm.
Their environments are constantly changing. People will change. It's just when you get into a marriage, it's just about being that teammate, right?
Mm-hmm.
You sign up for, you want to be a teammate. This is your life partner, for better or for worse. That's where that whole identity comes from, right? And they're gonna change with you. You're gonna change with them. That's what you sign up for. You don't sign up for just with who that person is today.
Right.
You sign up for who that person is 90 years from now.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
so
that's huge.
Yeah.
You hit a lot of awesome stuff, and in closing, I just want to kind of bring that back to listening. With everything that you said, all of these challenges can be overcome with listening. And we've probably all heard this before. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen more than we speak. And most things can be resolved by listening, by asking questions. Like you've had conversations to identify whatever that is, that where you can be better at your responsibility. You know what I mean? Whether it's in your career, in your relationship, or as a coach, for example. You know what I mean? Whatever responsibility you may hold. So just encourage you guys all to improve that. Situations, whatever your role is that we just discussed, by listening. Okay, listen to your partner, and also in addition, listen to yourself. You've got intuition inside of you, and if your gut feels a certain way, that's the Holy Spirit speaking to you that you need to follow that direction or fix it. There's something going on here that needs to be resolved, and when you get that resolved, you'll find that joy and you'll continue to live in peace. So, stay uncommon. Stay tuned for our next episode. If I could turn this off.